Sheng Xiaoyu had always believed he was strong, untouchable, and above everything that could ever break him. He was an S-class alpha, the kind that everyone respected and feared. His entire life, he had been told that he was born to dominate, born to lead, born to never bend. And yet, here he was, sitting in the quiet of his bedroom, staring at the small white test strip in his trembling hand. 2 lines. 2 red lines that screamed at him, that mocked everything he thought he knew about himself. Pregnant. That word shouldn't belong to him. That word should never have touched his life. He was an alpha. He wasn't supposed to have this kind of possibility in his body. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. And yet, no matter how many times he blinked, no matter how many times he looked away and looked back, the result didn't change. His chest tightened. His heart was beating so fast it felt like it would burst. Sheng tried to convince himself it was wrong. Maybe the test was broken. Maybe the doctor had made a mistake. Maybe he was hallucinating. But deep down, his instincts told him the truth. Something inside him was growing. Something that didn't belong. Something that tied him completely to Hua Yong. The memories came rushing back like a flood. That night, when Hua Yong had forced him into a heat he didn't understand. That night when desire took over his body and left him helpless. Hua Yong's hands, Hua Yong's kisses, Hua Yong's dominance. He had told himself it was just lust, just a one-time mistake that he could forget. But his body didn't forget. Now it carried proof of that night. Sheng stumbled back and collapsed onto his bed, his knuckles white as he gripped the sheets. His mind screamed at him, "This can't be real. This isn't who I am. I'm not an Omega. I'm not weak. I'm not." But his trembling hands moved back to his stomach, pressing lightly against the flat surface. There was nothing visible yet, but the idea was enough to make his entire body shake. Something small, something alive, something that belonged to Hua Yong was already inside him. And that thought terrified him more than death itself. Sheng didn't know how long he stayed like that, curled up with the test strip clutched in his hand, staring into nothingness. Hours? Minutes? Time didn't matter. All he knew was that his world had been ripped apart. "Impossible," he whispered to himself, his voice hoarse. "I'm an alpha. How can I be pregnant?" The words sounded ridiculous even as they left his mouth. He had always seen the world in black and white, alphas on top, omegas beneath, thetas in between. That was the natural order. But now his very existence had shattered that order. And there was only one person who could be responsible. Hua Yong. The name alone was enough to set his teeth on edge. His heart twisted in anger, in betrayal, in something he couldn't name. He remembered Hua Yong's smug smile, the way he looked at him like he owned him. Hua Yong had always been manipulative, always hiding things, always bending the world to his will. But this was beyond anything Sheng could have imagined. Why didn't Hua Yong tell him? Why didn't he explain what he really was? Why let him believe he was just another alpha? Unless Hua Yong had planned this. The thought made Sheng's stomach churn. He pushed himself off the bed, pacing the room like a trapped animal. His breaths came fast, his vision blurred with fury and fear. "Did he do this to trap me?" Sheng whispered, clenching his fists. Did he know all along? His heart said yes. His pride wanted to deny it. But the more he thought about Hua Yong, the lies, the secrets, the manipulations, the clearer it became. Hua Yong wasn't just an alpha. He wasn't just anyone. He was something else, something higher, something Sheng couldn't fully understand. And now, his child was proof of it. That night, Sheng couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning in endless circles. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Hua Yong's face, heard Hua Yong's voice whispering his name, felt Hua Yong's body against his. His skin burned with the memories he wanted to forget but couldn't. And then there was the fear. What would people say if they found out? What would his family say? What would his enemies do with this information? He was supposed to be strong, untouchable. If anyone learned that he carried another man's child, his reputation would shatter. His brother would have more ammunition to destroy him. His father would... Sheng squeezed his eyes shut. He couldn't even finish the thought. He curled up on his side, pulling the blanket tight around him. His hand drifted again to his stomach, almost without thinking. It was such a small gesture, but it made his chest ache. There was life inside him. Half him, half Hua Yong. No matter how much he wanted to deny it, no matter how much he wanted to rip it out, it was there. And the worst part? A tiny piece of him didn't hate it. That realization hit him like a slap. He sat up suddenly, shaking his head. No, I won't fall into his trap. He forced the words out, his voice breaking. I won't let him control me. But deep down, he knew it was already too late. The next morning, Sheng avoided Hua Yong completely. He couldn't face him, not when the truth was still fresh and raw. He locked himself in his office, pretending to work, but his mind was far from the documents stacked in front of him. Every sound in the hallway made his heart skip. Every knock on the door made his chest tighten in fear that it might be Hua Yong. He needed time. He needed answers. And most of all, he needed to figure out what he was going to do with this child. He couldn't let anyone know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But how long could he keep this secret before it destroyed him? Sheng Xiaoyu paced back and forth across his office, unable to sit, unable to think clearly. The world felt unreal, hazy, like he had stepped into someone else's life and had no idea how to navigate it. His hand subconsciously rested on his stomach, over the evidence that he still refused to fully accept. Each heartbeat, each flutter inside him was a reminder of the truth he was trying desperately to ignore. He had always thought he understood himself, of his existence. He had always been an alpha, a predator at the top of the hierarchy, untouchable, untamed, and in control of everything around him. And yet now, nothing made sense. His body had betrayed him. And more than that, the man he had trusted most, the one he had loved quietly, endlessly, was somehow behind it. Hua Yong. Just the name alone could make Sheng's blood boil, could make his mind fracture into a million conflicting thoughts. He remembered every detail from that night, Hua Yong's hands on him, firm and unrelenting, the heat that had consumed him, the way he had felt simultaneously powerless and inexplicably alive. Sheng had told himself that it was lust, that it was one night, that he could forget it. But the evidence inside him refused to let him lie to himself. He was pregnant, and it could only be Hua Yong. The thought should have filled him with rage, with a desire to strike, to punish, to flee. And yet it didn't. Somehow, buried deep under the storm of confusion and fear, there was a tiny, guilty thread of fascination, maybe even a spark of longing he couldn't explain. A connection that terrified him because it was real, undeniable, and irrevocable. Sheng stopped pacing and leaned against the edge of his desk, his fingers gripping the polished wood as if it could anchor him to reality. He thought of Hua Yong, his manipulations, his cunning, the way he had always seemed 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He had hidden things from Sheng for years, masked himself, made Sheng believe he was just another alpha, just another man. And now Hua Yong had taken it further than ever before. He had crossed boundaries that Sheng had thought were impossible to cross. And somehow, Sheng couldn't even bring himself to hate him completely, even as his entire body screamed that he should. It was infuriating, maddening. And he hated the way his pulse raced when he remembered the way Hua Yong's lips had pressed against his neck, the way his body had claimed him, the way he had whispered Sheng's name like it was his own. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it. The memory was vivid, raw, and haunting, leaving him breathless and unsettled. The moment had been intimate, invasive, and terrifying, but it had also awakened something in Sheng that he had never known existed, a vulnerability he had never allowed himself to feel, a connection that was raw, primal, and frighteningly real. And now, that connection had manifested in a way he never thought possible, something physical, undeniable, and irreversible. A life inside him, tied to Hua Yong in a way that defied the natural order he had always understood. A life that would force him to confront truths he had spent his entire existence avoiding. Sheng sat down heavily in his chair, burying his face in his hands as he struggled to catch his breath. He had always believed he could control everything, his career, his body, his emotions, but this was beyond control. This was chaos in its purest form, a storm he could neither predict nor contain. He had no choice but to face it, to confront the reality that was pressing against him with every heartbeat, every movement, every flutter that reminded him that he was no longer the master of his own body. And worse, the one who had created this chaos, the one who had manipulated him, was sitting somewhere unaware that Sheng knew, unaware that the fragile thread of control he had left was slipping through his fingers. His mind raced, trying to piece together what this meant. What did it mean to be pregnant as an alpha? How could this be possible? All the rules he had been taught, all the hierarchy he had lived by, suddenly seemed meaningless, broken, irrelevant. His thoughts turned to Hua Yong again, to the cunning, manipulative man who had orchestrated so much of his life without his knowledge. Sheng's chest tightened at the thought. He had loved Hua Yong, had trusted him in ways he had never trusted anyone else, had allowed himself to be vulnerable in a way he thought impossible. And now that vulnerability had been weaponized against him in the most profound, intimate, and terrifying way possible.